So day one of NFL free agency is well underway, and the Philadelphia Eagles, a few hours into the free agency period, have officially made their first monster splash. The Eagles signing Jets edge rusher Bryce Huff to a 3-year, $51.1 million contract. $34 million of that is guaranteed. We talked about Bryce Huff as being an option for Philadelphia over the weekend because there were reports coming out that the Eagles were looking to trade Josh Sweat and or Hassan Reddick. And the signing of Huff here, who is a young emerging player, could signal the end for Sweat and or Hassan Reddick. And we'll certainly see what happens. But Philadelphia here is signing one of the top edge rushers on the market. A pretty cool story for him. He was a UDFA in 2020 out of Memphis, and this is the largest contract for a non-drafted quarterback who's a non-quarterback in the history of the NFL. So the largest contract for an undrafted player who's not a quarterback in the history of the NFL. And he's been described as a Howie Roseman type of player through and through. And keep in mind here that Howie was able to get some really good intel on Huff because he's really good friends with Joe Douglas, who's the Jets general manager, who was a longtime assistant general manager for Philadelphia, and they know each other really well. So I can only imagine that Howie did his research, he did his due diligence on a player like Huff, who fulfills a massive need for Philadelphia in needing to bulk up the edge rusher spot. And we'll see what happens with their future plans for Reddick and Sweat, but at the very least here, you're going to have Huff at $17 million per, which I think is a really good value contract for the Eagles here. Young, emerging player who's ascending, rounding into his form. You're not having to break the bank in giving him a massive salary, and you're paying him in hopes that he's going to continue to develop and turn into a very good option under Vic Fangio, who I think is going to be able to elevate Bryce Huff. His numbers this past year in what was a career year for him: 29 tackles, 10 tackles for loss, 10 sacks, 21 quarterback hits, and 1 pass breakup. He was also very highly graded by Pro Football Focus. And I think that's a big reason why Philadelphia looked into the player and he became a top option for them. An 86.8 pass rush grade with 67 pressures, 45 hurries, and 12 quarterback hits. You look at what he's done in his last 4 years here. The 2023 campaign really put him on the radar for a lot of teams across the National Football League with those 10 sacks. The production before that, obviously very limited, with 3.5 sacks in 2022, 2 sacks in 2021, but 9 games played, and 2 sacks in 2020. But think about the identity of who this player is. A young player at 25 who's really starting to break out, a little bit of an analytical darling, a UDFA who's really had to get in the lab and work for what he's now received. And I think that Vic Fangio is going to be able to utilize him in a variety of ways to continue to really bring the best out of him. As for some of the weaknesses in his game, he was not a highly graded player against the run, and he's a little bit smaller and leaner. But the Eagles have signed a player like Reddick in the past. They drafted a player like Nolan Smith. What's the common theme between those two players and Bryce Huff? Which is kind of what Howie Roseman is prioritizing here as far as how they look at edge rushers. A very quick first step, very good bend around the edge. He's a twitchy player who's still strong. It leaves you to have some concerns with him not being good against the run and being a little bit slighter, because he will struggle against the run in setting the edge, because your linebacking core is still not all that good, and they continue to be susceptible at the middle area of the field, both against the run and against the pass. But to really summarize this, I think this is a great signing for Philadelphia. And over the weekend, his name really started to become a popular name. He's a player who we've talked about on Philadelphia Eagles now as being an option, because you're not paying a free agent who's older and at the tail end of his prime. You're investing in a player, $17 million per, who's starting to enter his prime, who's a good scheme fit. And now you have Bryce Huff, Nolan Smith, who are going to be speed demons coming off the edge. And are both Reddick and Sweat going to be dealt? We will see. I think one of them is going to get moved because now Bryce Huff, $17 million per, is making more than Hassan Reddick on the final year of his deal. But $34 million in guaranteed money, you kind of look at this as a 2-year deal to a certain degree, worth that $17 million in average annual value. And I think he's going to be a shoo-in for double-digit sacks once again when you have some of the players on the interior that you have in Jalen Carter, in Jordan Davis, as well as Milton Williams. So grade the signing here of Bryce Huff to the Philadelphia Eagles, A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section, and stay tuned because there's a lot of buzz now behind Saquon Barkley, maybe being a Philadelphia Eagle as well, with DeAndre Swift signing with the Chicago Bears. But first, if you want to play daily fantasy sports, the only app that you should be using is Prize Picks. The best, number one, and largest independently run daily fantasy sports app in North America. It's daily fantasy sports made easy. You pick 2 or more players, you choose more or less on their projected stats, $100 deposit match, prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use the code CLNS for that deal to apply. We're going to put that link down below in the comments section as well as in the description of this video. And as you know, with Prize Picks, you can win big money and withdraw your winnings. And if you've been tailing producer Chip and I all throughout the 2023 NFL season, you know that we always provide you with winners if you do want to tail us. And we can give you NFL picks, MLB picks, college basketball, NBA picks. We are well-rounded, versatile people here as far as our vast sports knowledge. So in this regard, let's go to our NBA selections. Luka Doncic, he's been on that crazy triple-double run, more than 33.5 points. We like that in that game against the Chicago Bulls on Monday. Cade Cunningham, more than 24.5 points. He's one of the only options scoring the basketball for the Detroit Pistons. And then Devin Vassell, more than 10 rebounds and assists combined. $100 deposit match, prizepicks.com/CLNS, code CLNS for that deal to apply. So Bryce Huff, 10 sacks last year on only 47% of the snaps for the Eagles. When you're getting paid $17 million per, those numbers, as far as his snap count goes, are going to increase. So that could lead to more than 10 sacks. Only 25 years old, will be 26 in April. Not good against the run with New York. I think this is really good money. And obviously, to summarize that, probably means that either Hassan Reddick and or Josh Sweat are going to get dealt. Elsewhere on day one of free agency for Philadelphia, the Birds losing their starting running back in DeAndre Swift, signing with the Chicago Bears, a 3-year, $24 million contract, $15.3 million in guaranteed money. According to Jeremy Fowler, the Eagles tried to work with Swift prior to free agency in bringing him back. Swift did not sign that deal. He waited it out, and in the process, he got a big deal with Chicago. That's going to come out to $8 million in average annual value. And he gets a lot of guaranteed money for a player who is still young in his mid-20s, who just had a career year running for more than 1,000 yards for the first time in his career. St. Joe's Prep, Philadelphia's own, went to Georgia, was a star there. 5 touchdowns. What's crazy about the numbers here to my right, he was criminally underused by offensive coordinator Brian Johnson. There were only 2 times last year where Swift had more than 20 carries. So now that he's going to Chicago, you have to imagine his workload is going to increase, and his numbers are going to be able to go up as well. Average yards per carry, very good at 4.6. I thought that he was underutilized as a pass catcher in that Eagles offense. Now Philadelphia's going to miss him being elusive, explosive, shifty, being able to make guys miss, and him being a home run threat every time he touches the football. They're going to miss him if they don't replace him. But they could replace him with Saquon Barkley because the buzz behind Saquon to Philadelphia is real, it's gaining steam, and it could happen. According to a multitude of reports, the Eagles are showing real interest in Saquon Barkley, in paying him. And you think about what's happened with the running back market. Tony Pollard is getting $8 million per with the Houston Texans. The Texans were said to be interested in Saquon. Take him out. The Bears were said to be interested in Saquon. They signed DeAndre Swift. Take him out of the equation. You had Josh Jacobs signing with the Green Bay Packers and leaving the Las Vegas Raiders. So the running back market, which has been diminished in recent years, has actually proven to be pretty solid for backs. What I think the thinking might be for Philadelphia, they're not willing to give Swift $8 million per and $15 guaranteed. But are they willing to pay Saquon, who is older, more of an injury history, more tread on the tires, but is no doubt unquestionably the better player, between $10 to $14 million? And they look at that as a massive upgrade for a player in Saquon who is a dual threat back to a T. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can run routes out of the slot. He's one of the best pass protecting backs in the entire NFL. Can run really anywhere on the football field and is such a dynamic player who would no doubt improve this Eagles offense. You look at what he's done over the last 4 years, running behind an awful offensive line for the New York Giants. If you put him behind this offensive line for the Eagles, you have to imagine the numbers are going to be on the uptick. And he can be the player that he was in 2022 when he ran for more than 1,300 yards, and a player who might be utilized even more as a pass catcher under Kellen Moore, because he's certainly capable of doing that. And lastly, speaking of the offensive line for Philadelphia, they gave Landon Dickerson a record-breaking contract extension for a left guard. They give him a massive contract extension, which checks in at 4 years, $84 million, $50 million in guaranteed money. That checks out to $21 million per year. That is the richest contract as far as average annual value goes for a guard in the history of the NFL. And does that help you sign Saquon? Because you still have Jordan Mailata, who was the third highest graded offensive tackle in the game last year. You still have Lane Johnson at right tackle. And Cam Jurgens was handpicked to be Jason Kelce's replacement by the man himself in Jason Kelce. So you look at the highest paid guards per year right now. Landon Dickerson getting $21 million per, overtakes Chris Lindstrom and Quentin Nelson, Zach Martin, and Elgton Jenkins as some of the highest paid guards in football right now. So we round out with this. Do you want to see the Eagles sign Saquon Barkley? Give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Share your thoughts with us down below in the comments section. And thanks for watching the show as always. Don't forget to subscribe.